A strange home invasion in Woodland Hills, bodies found in cars, and another lawsuit claims conditions are deplorable inside LA County jails. It's the Leonard Files podcast. I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard from NBC Los Angeles for Friday, September 12th, 2025. I thought we would start with a bizarre set of circumstances that we still haven't been able to really sort out that began a day ago, Thursday, September 11th, in Woodland Hills, where there was a home invasion of some kind, and somebody may have been taken captive during the home invasion. And then apparently overnight, the police department, the LAPD, along with FBI agents and maybe some officers from another law enforcement agency, were trying to figure out if people in that home had been abducted. And if they had, where are they and are they okay? And all of that apparently led to a search in North Hollywood. I'll play you a little bit of video from this. This was early on Friday morning, September 12th. This is some video from one of the freelancers that we use out in North Hollywood. This is along Camarillo Street. And in the middle of the night, members of the LAPD SWAT team went in with the help of detectives and served some search warrants at a home there in North Hollywood. And we saw a bunch of people be brought out of there. Some of them looked like they had been injured. So the best information we have right now, which is not a lot, is that there may have been people who were the victims of that home invasion out in Woodland Hills a day earlier that somehow wound up at that location in North Hollywood. All of this is very murky, and it's telling that the LAPD has not shared a lot of specific information about what's going on. In fact, in one of the statements we got from some of the senior leadership in the department, they didn't even use the words crime or describe a specific crime. They characterized all these as various incidents. So it seems like it's not even clear who among the people that the detectives have interacted with and the members of the SWAT team pulled out of the house could be considered maybe responsible for any of what happened or who were victims of any of what happened. It has some bizarre overtones. The reason I wanted to include it is because I think we're going to come back to it and figure out if there's something more to this whole situation. But let me get to the other significant local stories that I played a role in covering this week. We'll go over to our checklist this morning. The home invasion and kidnapping. I think we can check that off our list here. We've got bodies found in cars. So we had two unusual events on Monday and Tuesday involving the discovery of human remains inside cars. Let me first start with Hollywood Division of the LAPD and Hollywood Tow, which is the official police garage for LAPD Hollywood Division, and what they discovered inside a black Tesla with Texas license plates after it had been impounded.
News Chopper 4 was over the lot a short time ago to show us what's going on. Clearly visible, a tent where detectives are gathering and cataloging evidence. And close by, a gray Tesla with Texas license plates, its front hood open. On Teslas like this, trunk space is at the front of the car, not the back. A dark-colored bag is visible inside. We believe this to be the car that was impounded and towed here over the weekend. LAPD homicide detectives tell us it's been reported as abandoned from an undisclosed location.
Okay, so that was Gordon Tokamatsu, our reporter out there. But we've learned a bunch more things. First of all, cars registered in Texas to a somewhat notable singer, a guy who goes by the moniker David, but it's spelled D4VD. He's out on tour. And the car was discovered after it had been parked a really long time. So one of the things we learned by searching through the city's database of parking tickets is that the car was parked on Bluebird, which is considered part of the Bird Streets, which is right on the border of LA and Beverly Hills in the Hollywood Hills, north of Sunset Boulevard. And it was right at the intersection of Bluebird and Doheny. And people in the neighborhood that we talked with said that the car had been parked there a really long time, more than a month. LAPD hasn't said exactly how long they believe the car was parked there, but it seems like it was there a while. The parking ticket database showed that it was cited for being parked for more than 72 hours on September 3rd, which meant that somebody from parking enforcement, the Department of Transportation, had been out and saw the car at least 3 days before that. And I think we figured out it was towards the end of August. And then after they cited it, or first looked at it, then cited it, and they impounded it on either the 5th or the 6th. And it sat at that tow yard in Hollywood until Monday, when somebody noticed the odor and called police. LAPD came out there. They got a search warrant. They opened the car, and that's where they found the remains of what we now have learned was a woman, small in stature, about 5'2", 5'3", and wrapped in something inside the front trunk of the Tesla. I believe that was a Model X. And the front trunk, or the frunk, is not that big, but it's big enough, I suppose, to conceal somebody. So the investigation is ongoing. As of our recording on the 12th, no public identification has been made, which means the detectives may very well know or have an idea of who this individual was. They said the body was in a terrible state of decomposition, and so it may take a while to confirm the identity of the person who was in the car. And obviously, we want to wait until the investigators and the coroner's office have a chance to contact the family before they make that information public. But it doesn't sound like the description, from what we've heard, and again, this is early on, only a few days in, it doesn't sound like the description of the person in the car matches a description of somebody who was reported missing locally. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't reported missing somewhere else or they haven't vanished from some other part of the country, but locally, it didn't seem to match up. But we'll keep looking on that part of it. As far as the investigation goes, the police tell us that they contacted representatives for this singer, David. His representative told us that they're cooperating with the police. He's out on tour. I think he was in Kansas or Minneapolis. He was somewhere in the Midwest, far outside of Los Angeles. But one of the things the investigators are really looking at carefully is the timeline, because of how long that car was parked there. Interestingly, when I was out in the neighborhood knocking on doors looking for anybody that might remember when the car first showed up, there weren't a lot of cameras on the street. There was a house directly across the street that had like a doorbell or an entry buzzer kind of camera, but one of the neighbors didn't think that it recorded all the time. It just is one of those ones that pops on if someone rings your doorbell. I didn't see many other security cameras up and down that street, which is weird because this is a part of town where there's cameras everywhere, especially one block over in Beverly Hills. If you go down Sunset to the west, just past Doheny is where the city of Beverly Hills starts. There's cameras at every intersection. They're everywhere, not to mention the privately owned ones. The intersection ones are owned by the city. So it'll be interesting to see how they're able to trace back the time of when that car showed up in the neighborhood. I can tell you one of the workers in the neighborhood who worked at some houses that were further up the hill on Bluebird said that he drives that route almost daily and remembered seeing that car since at least early August. So we'll see. Clearly an interesting investigation. Even though no cause of death had been established by the time we're recording this, nobody thinks that this was an accident. Somebody had to be involved in putting this woman inside the front trunk of this Tesla. The cause of her death could be accidental, but the mechanics of getting her in there obviously took somebody else. This wasn't somebody who died accidentally. So it feels like that's going to be a significant criminal case. The investigation's been handed off to the LAPD Robbery Homicide Division, and they're the detectives that handle a lot of higher profile cases. There was another discovery. So while we were covering the Tesla discovery, there was another person discovered deceased in a car. This time it was at a tow yard that serves the LAPD's South Los Angeles area. And strange coincidence, the car that was at the center of this second incident and case came from Hollywood. It just wound up there for a number of strange reasons. There's no reason to believe, by the way, that there's any connection between the Tesla body and the second body, which was found in a 2007 Honda. But the discoveries made the next day, also at a tow yard. LAPD detectives had gone to the yard to meet family members of the person that this car was registered to, and the person that the car was registered to has been missing. So detectives go with the family members. They're going to look in the car to see if there's any belongings, anything that might help explain where this missing person has gone. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, the car had been set on fire. So it was a burned wreck. And while the detectives were there with the family members is when they discovered that there was a body inside the car who appears to be, at last we were able to find out, this missing person. Now, this begs a lot of questions because when cars are impounded in the course of an unexpected event, let alone a fire, and especially in concert with some kind of crime, and we know in this case there was a missing persons report tied to the license plate, it stands to reason that somebody would have searched that car or at least looked through it at some point. It appears that that didn't happen until the family members were there with the detectives, and just as a human being, I can only hope that the detectives and the police who were there are the ones that made the discovery and not the family, because that would be something that's truly awful. Again, it seems like both of these incidences are complete coincidences. There's no connection other than the geographic proximity, but it sounds like the event that led to the death of this I shouldn't say young woman, but the woman that was found in the Tesla and the event that led to the discovery of this person in the Honda are completely disconnected by time, circumstance, and any number of other things. Just odd coincidence that both of those things happened pretty much on the same week. So let's check that off. We'll continue to follow both of those cases as they develop. And we can turn now to another unusual case involving the state of California and its Attorney General, Rob Bonta, who filed a lawsuit this week against the County of Los Angeles, the Sheriff's Department, the sheriff himself, and a couple of other county officials over what he said were inhumane and deplorable conditions inside LA County Jail. So I'm going to try to bring up my screen here and see if I can play this for you. Here's Rob Bonta.
Conditions aren't new. For decades, the county has been aware of the unconstitutional conditions inside its jails. Yet instead of taking responsibility and fixing the problems, they've resisted oversight. They've spent millions of dollars defending lawsuits, fighting change instead of embracing it.
Okay, so that's the state attorney general announcing this lawsuit against LA County. And what's unusual about this is that it's happening now. The County of Los Angeles has been struggling for years to properly manage its jails, the juvenile justice centers, juvenile halls, and deal with people who are in the care of the county. When you think about people who are in jail, you think they're in jail, but they're really technically in the care of the county, the government, and they're required to provide for them. And increasingly in recent years, many of the people who are going through the LA County jail system are in need of specific services or accommodations, particularly people who are mentally ill. And this is something that we've been covering for years and years and years. There have been countless lawsuits filed over the jail conditions, things that range from overcrowding to the quality or absence of medical care, to the treatment of people who are possibly mentally ill and how quickly they're brought in and assessed and then placed into some housing. We did a story, I want to say it was a couple of years ago, when the ACLU began to complain that the County Inmate Reception Center, or IRC, where they first bring inmates into the jail system, was ill-equipped to manage the people who needed to be assessed for mental health problems. And as a result, both of overcrowding and the lack of whatever the caseworkers or the clinicians, whoever was required to be involved in that process, there weren't enough of them. And so you would have people who were stuck, chained to chairs in that reception center for hours and hours and hours. And in some cases, the ACLU said they were left for more than a day. Then you had issues with excessive force inside the jails, where there were a variety of deputies over different incidents accused of using excessive force on inmates, not to mention the extraordinary number of deaths that occur inside jails. Now, some of those arguably are not preventable because people come in with medical conditions. Some people come in already overdosing on drugs. Stuff happens. Jails are not nice places. But on the other hand, there's a lot of other deaths that arguably could and should be prevented, namely suicides or people who acquire and use illegal drugs to a lethal level after they're inside. And so all of this stuff has been known for years. The county has paid out, I think as you were hearing the state attorney general, Rob Bonta, reference, the county has paid out legal settlement after legal settlement to people who have been harmed while they're inside jails, not to mention the cost of litigating some of these larger cases about jail conditions. In fact, one of the big cases is called Rutherford versus the County of Los Angeles, and it's been going on longer than a lot of people are alive. It has morphed from one sheriff to the next sheriff to the next sheriff, and it's one of those cases where a judge is trying to force the county to accomplish a variety of things in order to make the conditions better, and it doesn't seem like there's a clear resolution. The County of Los Angeles, to its credit, has spent more time, it appears to us on the outside, focusing on dealing with many of these issues in recent couple of years than it had in the past for many years. And the county even set up a website where they're constantly updating all of the different things that they're required to do, specifically under that Rutherford case, but also some others, in order to try to improve the conditions inside the county jail. But it's not done. And according to the lawsuit filed by the state attorney general's office, a lot of the things that the county says it's accomplished, Bonta's case claims are still unaddressed. So in response to the Bonta case, the sheriff's department put out a long statement, said that it's reached benchmarks in dealing with a variety of these issues, and it's making the improvements it should. It characterized Bonta's lawsuit as being filed based on a lot of old information. But as I always think about when I'm dealing with these, old doesn't necessarily mean wrong, right? Things can be old and still true. So just because an accusation or an allegation has been marinating for a while doesn't mean that it's not accurate anymore. So there's going to be something that comes of this, perhaps that's different from some of the other litigation. One person in county government who's been involved in both the juvenile hall issues and then also deeply with the sheriff's department issues said that they were glad to see that the state attorney general was stepping in to file this lawsuit because it was their belief, after many, many years working inside the county, that very little changes without outside pressure. So maybe this is a lawsuit that causes the county to do more or deal more urgently with some of these problems. And of course, the overarching issue with the county jails and certainly the juvenile system, which has now been to some degree taken out of the county's hands, is that there's just finite resources. There's only so much money and so many people to manage these facilities day in and day out, and it may take some time before either the facilities are modernized so they need fewer people to manage them, or they hire more people to manage them, perhaps in response to some kind of order from a judge or from the court. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Those are just a couple of the unusual cases that we were following this week. We'll try to go more in depth on the jail issue in the future because the things that are being alleged by the state attorney general are all things that were widely known. And one of the questions we're trying to answer is, why is it that the state attorney general stepped in now? Is there something else that's going on here that maybe we can't see at first glance? So I think we're going to come back to that and look into that in a little more detail. But like I said, I'll leave it there for now. You can always follow us here on the YouTube page. Click subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. I'll see you next time.